What if one of your base-born, silver-haired dragon riders decides he wants to rule the Seven Kingdoms? Did the Conqueror's dream foretell that?
What else would you have me do?
Rhaenyra Targaryen, the Black Queen, the blood of the dragon, or that's what she ought to be. You wouldn't really get that impression if you have watched Season 2 of House of the Dragon. For a character on a mission to wage a war with the express purpose of reclaiming her usurped throne, you would think that she would, well, have more teeth. Upon airing, there was near universal consensus that something was up with her character in the latest season. The fire in her character at the end of Season 1 seemed to have disappeared, a decision that seems to have been an intentional one on the showrunner's part. While she has spent nearly the entirety of the series defined by her desire for the throne, despite the writers desperately trying to convince us otherwise.
She never even wanted it. The crown.
She has spent much of the second season attempting to secure a peaceful resolution to the conflict, with hesitancy to commit to violent action after all the bloodshed thus far. Her extended restraint has begun to border on passivity in the eyes of many viewers. As the continent of Westeros descends into chaos, the Black Queen appears to be absent from it all. Despite the fact that a lot of her material in Season 2 is actually quite good, something is clear. She needs to change going forward. So in this video, I have come up with 3 suggestions on how Rhaenyra as a character could be improved in Season 3, in order of how important these changes would be. Before we begin, it should be said that I am going to avoid spoiling the book, as these changes don't necessarily need the knowledge of the story going forward to be understood. However, these suggestions were written with the express purpose of making her character more consistent with her written counterpart. Fix 1. Get rid of Mysaria. Mysaria is a plague on this show. There is no more eloquent way to say it. She actively damages Rhaenyra in nearly every scene they share. She went from being imprisoned for aiding the Greens in crowning Aegon in episode 1 to being released merely 2 episodes later. Not only that she becomes Rhaenyra's closest confidant, which if you think about it for any amount of time, it becomes apparent how absurd this all is. In the second half of Season 2, Rhaenyra spends the majority of screen time confiding in her, venting her frustrations with nearly everyone on her council, who are left in the dark on pretty much everything. They even have a line to account for this.
Where's the Queen?
Her Grace sends word she will not be attending.
What really turned Rhaenyra from a compelling, morally grey character in Season 1 into a dull, unengaging character in Season 2 was not just the poor job done in making an audience believe that Rhaenyra would so easily trust a woman who she has absolutely no reason to believe could be trusted, but the fact that Mysaria doesn't even have interesting conversations with her. Nearly all their shared screen time, which takes up a significant amount of the season, boils down to Mysaria simply praising Rhaenyra and telling her everything she wants to hear. The writers really need to do something interesting with her next season, because if we are all subjected to another 8 episodes of Rhaenyra standing around with Mysaria glazing her every moment she gets, then I don't think the audience will remain satisfied. And I have an idea on how they could resolve this issue. Have Mysaria betray Rhaenyra. This isn't a suggestion to create drama for drama's sake, as there is actually some potential foreshadowing in episode 7 that provides a perfect catalyst for this change: the red sowing. In this scene, there is a very intentional shot of Mysaria showing a look of visible horror at the burning of the dragon seeds. However, in the following episode, there was no resolution to this. It is as if it never happened. The show has outright stated that Mysaria cares about the small folk, and the callousness Rhaenyra showed to the Targaryen bastards would absolutely horrify anyone with any moral scruples. At this point, why exactly does she believe Rhaenyra would be better for the small folk than Aegon? What exactly has Team Green done that equals in cruelty to the red sowing or even Rhaenys stunt in the dragon pit? I think it would be a very good decision if the red sowing planted the seed of doubt in her mind that she can no longer justify Rhaenyra's path. A betrayal by Mysaria, perhaps by using her influence to make Rhaenyra ignore the advice of her council or sowing the seeds of dissent among the small folk, would provide a serious blow to Rhaenyra, effectively severing her trust in the people around her. This would give the writers an opportunity to lean into the sense of paranoia, forcing Rhaenyra to further isolate herself from her allies, thinking that she can only rule alone, edging her closer towards the path to become more true to the character presented in Fire and Blood. Fix 2. Tap into her divine purpose. If Rhaenyra were to take the throne next season, then they can't have her just be the same as she has been for quite some time. She can't sit around doing nothing while the Greens continue their campaign. She does not need to be the one fighting. Daemon and the Dragon Seeds are more than capable of supporting her armies, but she does need to start making more active decisions in the story. In a show about two sides of a civil war, it is essential to finally understand what type of queen she is going to be. And despite her passivity in Season 2, the writers may have planted a seed that I hope sprouts next season.
Vasir? Jaihosa ponte loviledis.
Ao ponte aolo vileda. Jaldrizesi voskizisi.
I think the most interesting thing they could do with her character is if they take this line and lean into the idea that she truly believes that the gods have ordained her to be victorious. When Aegon's prophecy was introduced in the very first episode of the show, most fans, including me, just assumed that it was a simple reference to Game of Thrones and nothing more. However, if we add Rhaenyra's newfound sense of divine purpose, the writers could take her in the direction of becoming somewhat fanatical, believing that her war is more than simply who gets to sit on the Iron Throne, but a necessity to ensure the survival of the kingdom from the coming apocalypse. This would make it much easier for the writers to get Rhaenyra out of her state of inaction. If she begins to delude herself that her claim is not only righteous, but necessary for the fulfillment of the prophecy, it would enable her to justify taking much more bold and decisive action. It would also serve to create some division between Rhaenyra and the rest of the Blacks. The reason the Green Council scenes were a standout in Season 2 was because of the constant conflict between its members, conflict that was driven by character, something the Black Council severely lacked. If she believes that she is the only one capable of saving humanity, and the gods have shown their favor by granting the success of the Dragon Seeds, her actions, no matter how violent, become justified in her own mind. Fix 3. Unleash her black fury. Unlike my previous two fixes, this one is not about taking Rhaenyra in a more interesting direction, but rather instead trying to address the most major issue with her character, one necessary for the show to be remedied, her naive view that her victory can come honorably. This issue is best encapsulated by the controversial secret meetings between her and Alicent in Episode 3 and 8. These two meetings have become the most universally criticized scenes of the season, if not for the absurd plot contrivances needed to make these meetings occur, then for damage these scenes do to both Rhaenyra and Alicent. While the show tries to justify them as tragic attempts at peace, they collapse under the weight of their already established characterization. I have already made a video discussing why their conversation in Episode 8 makes no sense from Alicent's perspective.
You let me go to do what I promised. Then you fly to the Red Keep in 3 days' time and you take your throne.
Fuck is this?
However, it also doesn't make much sense from Rhaenyra's either. The point of this meeting, I believe, was to directly contrast it to their first. When Rhaenyra snuck into the Sept to try and bargain with Alicent, she was in the weaker position, forced to try and broker a diplomatic end to the war, than face almost certain defeat in battle. Alicent correctly asserts to her the blunt truth that there is none. Too many lines have been crossed. On Dragonstone, their positions have been switched. It is now Rhaenyra in the position of strength. This time, the writers make it clear that she is unwilling to compromise. She must have Aegon's head, and it must be done publicly. Now this actually makes sense at this point in the story. However, where the problem lies is in letting Alicent go. If Rhaenyra is committed to her vengeance, then why would she ever let Alicent return to King's Landing after all she's been complicit in? It can't be for fear of retribution. What could anyone do? Dragonstone is on an island, safe from any land army, and with the addition of 3 more dragon riders, Aemond is in no position to strike. I worry that the reason she let Alicent leave is because the writers are too afraid to commit Rhaenyra to any action which might lower the audience's view of her. I get the sense that they clearly want Rhaenyra to be the show's moral centre, which unfortunately is just impossible going forward unless major changes to the story are made. At this point, after the usurpation of the throne, the murder of Luke, and the deaths of Sir Eric, Rhaenys, and Meleys, there should be no diplomacy with Alicent. This civility only works if Rhaenyra has a viewer's perspective. She can't see the inner conflict Alicent has been fostering over this war, nor can she see the clashes in opinion between her with both her family and the Green Council. So as far as she would be aware, Alicent is complicit, if not fully on board, of all the Greens' decision. It is far past the time for Rhaenyra to stop seeking a clean victory. Whilst her attempts to avoid bloodshed made for an interesting contrast to Daemon and her council in Season 1, Episode 10, and the early parts of Season 2, Season 3 needs to show her finally accepting that despite her efforts to honour her father and great-grandfather's legacy, the war for the Iron Throne is now one of annihilation. By leading with cold, uncompromising resolve, she can finally transform from a victim of circumstance into the architect of her and her family's fate, an evolution from being the realm's delight, beloved by all the realm, to the Black Queen, the true embodiment of the dragon's fury. To conclude, all of these ideas are purely my own opinion based on where I think it would be most interesting to take Rhaenyra's character. But no matter where her character goes, it all depends on the quality of the writing being strong, and despite what many people online will say, the writing team on House of the Dragon are capable of delivering excellent episodes of television. I still have hope that the quality of Seasons 3 and 4 will be more on the same level as Season 1, with Season 2 being standing out as the significant, but not without its merit, downgrade. Hopefully the show writers share my idea of where Rhaenyra should go. However, at this point I have more faith in George releasing the Winds of Winter than these writers giving Rhaenyra something interesting to do. If you have made it all this way into the video, then I would like to give you my biggest thanks. I hope you found it entertaining or even insightful. What did you think of my suggestions? Let me know in the comments section, and if you would like to see more breakdowns and analysis of the Song of Ice and Fire series, then please consider subscribing.